So today's class, I think this is the 23rd class in our 27 class structured study of lesser known suttas. So there's 3 more classes left in this structured study. Beginning August 15th, we're going to start a structured study of the complete Dhammapada, all 26 chapters. Today's sutta is interesting in the way the Buddha is presenting this teaching. So a key teaching of the Dhamma is to recognize and abandoning sensual craving for objects, events, views, and ideas that further our own ignorance by continuing to create a fabricated self in the world that then must be maintained. But not all desire is hurtful or takes away from the Dhamma. There's a Sanskrit/Pali word called chanda, chanda, that means skillful desire, and that's what the Buddha is talking about here. And it's the kind of desire that shouldn't be abandoned. It's the kind of desire that should be cultivated, but cultivated, and you'll see through this little sutta, cultivated through the framework of the Eightfold Path. It's a short sutta, but it really gets to the point of human life. Why are we here? And the Buddha will give us a list of the things that if we truly wish for these things, and these are the things that we should be wishing for as mature, awakened human beings, then our wishes will be granted if we develop the framework of the Eightfold Path. The Akankha Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya. The Buddha's words: if you wish to be held dear by your sangha, to be respected and inspiring to them, that's our responsibility, then listen closely to my words. And isn't it interesting that the Buddha starts out with this very significant sutta by pointing out the importance of the sangha and our contributions to the sangha. In other words, the sangha is not here for me. We're here for our sangha. And what has developed here is such a wonderful example of that. And in this room and within this sangha, it's always, I'm not going to use the word surprising, it's inspiring to me to see how everyone in our sangha, online and in our physical presence, is so supportive of each other in a real honest and in a gentle way. In other words, we also don't do anything within our sangha to allow people to continue their fabrications, but we do that in a very gentle way. We do it within the framework of the Dhamma. The Buddha continues: if your wish is that the gifts you receive be of benefit for all, listen closely to my words. If your wish is that thoughts of you bring benefit to all, listen closely to my words. But you hear me say that we, as people developing a Dhamma, our responsibility to the rest of the world is to be examples of that. That's what the Buddha is saying here. Listen closely to my words. If your wish is to be free of ever-changing conditions of emotional and physical upset, listen closely to my words. And isn't that what everybody wants? If your wish is to overcome disappointment, worry, and fear, listen closely to my words. Doesn't everybody want that? If your wish is to attain unwavering mindfulness and a pleasant abiding moment by moment, listen closely to my words. Ditto. If your wish is to attain the end of delusion and distraction, listen closely to my words. Friends, remain free from taking life. Remain free of taking what is not freely given or freely offered. Remain free of sexual misconduct. Remain free of hurtful speech. Remain free of intoxicating substances. Bring these precepts to perfection. Those are known as the 5 precepts. Friends, commit to develop tranquility. Be mindful of meditative absorption, or jhana. Be mindful of jhana and useful insight. What useful insight is a very focused insight. And it's kind of a counter to the modern insight movement, where we're supposed to be grasping after insight of washing the dishes or walking the dog or yellow paint. There's no benefit, and that's only a distraction. The insight that the Buddha teaches is very, very specific. and it's at the core of the Buddhist Dhamma. It's insight into the three marks of existence. The impermanence of all things, anicca, the misunderstanding of what a human being actually is, anatta, the not self-characteristic, and the resulting stress and suffering that follows that misunderstanding of self in relation to the world. That's the entire focus of the Buddhist Dhamma. And any other focus, no matter what label is applied to it, is a distraction from that specific purpose. We went through our 37 class Vipassana True Introspective Insight structure study last summer. And from my perspective, having that focus for those 37 classes really transformed our sangha. It was almost like a Dhamma shot of B12 because of that focus on this is just what we're doing. And I think by the end of that, it became even more clear what the Buddhist focus was. Again, that's what he's saying here. Useful insight. Meditate often and with consistency. Notice in that one line, that the Buddha's not saying meditate for 6 hours every day and consistently. I've read much of the Sutta Pitaka, not all of it, and I've never ever come across anything where the Buddha says you must meditate for X amount of time. Never. Even though we're so enamored as meditators in the modern world with meditating for long, so-called meditating for long periods of time. If length of time was important at all, the Buddha certainly would have mentioned it. What the Buddha talks about is the right method and doing it consistently. Because as using the right method consistently within the right framework will naturally support an effective meditation practice, and the length of time will be determined by usefulness, not by an external direction or demand. So just as an example, I meditate 30 minutes twice a day, every day. I've been doing that for years. There are times in my life, even now, when I feel like meditating for longer periods of time, and I simply just do it when I have the time to do it. But that practice allowed me to develop jhana meditation, but also allowed me to continue to realize I need to focus on the entire Eightfold Path. And so if I was like many modern practitioners that think that it's just meditation, and I'm meditating for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and not getting anywhere, I won't notice and not getting anywhere because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or I might do what I did, coming out of 7 or 10 day sessions where I'm meditating for 14 hours a day and wondering why it's so brutal and blaming myself until I realized that that's not something that the Buddha taught. So sitting without any real framework or direction and nothing else is really brutal. But sitting within the framework of the Buddha's Dhamma very quickly gets to be an inspiring action that we take. We recognize the benefits of it because we're actually developing an entire Dhamma practice, not just one aspect of something that an awakened human being taught. Train yourself in this, the Buddha's words, train yourself in this manner and be mindful of even the slightest deviation. Again, the Buddha is just encouraging us to take to his Dhamma and keep it pure, even the slightest deviation. I thought that was the end. That's the end of this simple sutta. Thank you for listening. Let's go around. We'll start with Mary. Ladies first. Mary, how are you this morning?
Good morning, John. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Boy, there's I don't think I've ever heard this before, and I didn't read it before today. Not to be redundant, but boy, everything's there. Like the secret to unlock is right there. And I think sometimes when we come to meditation or meeting someone like you, John, you know, we're looking for the magical key to unlock things or to stop our suffering. But what you've just described is the answer to so many things. And it is the simplicity, I think, that really draws us all to stay with this, even when we're challenged, is that it's the simplicity and the consistency of what's being said is the answer. And it is, you know, the Eightfold Path is completely in that. So just beautiful, the simplicity of it, and how profound it is. So I will go back and read that. That's really wonderful, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for your comments. The sutta points out the importance of the attitude of our intention for Dhamma practice, doesn't it? That most beginning Dhamma practitioners have some fear and trepidation and doubt, et cetera, et cetera. But if we practice the pure Dhamma, the way the Buddha taught it, we will very quickly realize the benefits of it because we'll have the experience of it. And so our attitude will change and we will hold this dear. Remember, the Buddha keeps using those words and they ring in my head often. Holding this dear, holding the Dhamma dear. Think about that. And treating it that way, not treating it as something that is a secondary aspect of our life. It is our life. That's what the Buddha says.
Beautiful. You know, one other thing, John, it's the relationship, like the way the Sutta started off with the relationship between the person and the sangha, that the sangha isn't something you come and just receive something from, that you're contributing to it as well, and you're expected to contribute to it. Like in any relationship, there is what you are getting from it, but it's what you're contributing to it as well that brings the richness of the experience.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mary. And that's that is the reason why we have our classes the way we have. In other words, you're not just coming on here and listening to a talk from me. That may or may not be helpful. What is most helpful is you hear a Dhamma talk. Hopefully it's very close to what the Buddha would have said, and we get to then support each other in developing that understanding. And that's why it works so well. You know, and it's a reflection of how the Buddha, I often say on our retreats, I've always said on our retreats, that our retreats are very similar to the way the original Sangha lived their daily life. And our Sangha and our classes are very close to what would have taken place during the Buddha's time, because there was always a talk and there was almost always a discussion afterwards. The Buddha never saw himself as divine or as a prophet, and had this overarching voice that should never be questioned or looked at. In fact, the Buddha often said, the Kalama Sutta is one of the most famous suttas, he says, if you don't understand what I'm saying, please question me on it. And of course, that's been corrupted to say that the Buddha said to question everything about his Dhamma. Why would he say something like that? Thank you, Mary. I'm glad you joined us today.
Thank you, John.
Good morning, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing fine, John. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking.
Okay. I've been contemplating the precepts for a while now, and initially I thought that some of them did not apply to me. Taking what is not offered, I tended to equate that with the yogic precept of non-stealing. And of course, I don't steal, so what does it have to do with me? But then I realized it doesn't say don't steal, it says don't take what is not offered.
Yep.
And I came to realize that I do take what is not offered, and it causes conflict. And what I take is someone's attention. When someone is not really interested in hearing what you have to say, no matter how important you may think it is, you try to force your insight or your wonderful realization on that person's attention. And they're just not offering that attention to you. So you have to give up validating your insight by grabbing their attention and forcing them to acknowledge it.
Yes.
And that has helped me avoid recurring daily conflicts, just meditating on that precept.
Yeah. Ed, thank you so much. That is such a profound understanding of what the Buddha is teaching here. And of course, it begins with not stealing things. But at its most subtle level, that is the point, that we don't take people intellectually or emotionally hostage. And it's interesting that as a society, we have a phrase for doing just that, isn't it? But even but at its most subtle level, it reveals one of the most common human mental issues, mental disease, and that's a Messiah complex. Because for me to think that I have to get you to think my way is rooted in that, isn't it? That I'm here to save you, and I know what's best for you. And it gets to that very subtle level of taking what is not freely given. And when you think of an image of the Buddha, he didn't try to coerce one soul. That's the wrong word in the Dhamma, isn't it? He didn't try to convince one person to develop the Dhamma. He just simply said, this is what it is. Ehepasiku, come and see for yourself if you want it. And those that had the wherewithal and the attitudinal intention then did just that. They developed the Dhamma. And what you just pointed out, Ed, is where the Dhamma begins to offer liberation. When I don't have to be concerned about establishing myself in the world, taking everything personal, then I don't have to do the same to you and try to mold you into accepting who I think I am. And do you see the complications in that? And the complexity of trying to maintain a fabricated self to another fabricated self. That's why the world doesn't work. And it really is hinging on that one thing. Thank you, Ed. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, John. Good morning, everybody. You know, I didn't want to say anything today, but of course I have to. You know, I actually pulled this out of the paper, the sutta, out of a old class we had in the past. And, you know, this is almost like a conversation. To me, it's not really a cohesive sutta, and let me explain. Again, everything that's stated in the sutta obviously has a lot of wisdom and insight, but I think it's missing a lot of things. You know, one thing that with the precepts that always rings a bell to me is the issue of control. And the Buddha clearly states that in the beginning when he talks about things that are not controllable, like, for instance, the wishes of how others take what you say and do. We can't control that. We cannot control if somebody agrees with you, likes you, respects you. All you can do is through the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path, correct, is to use right and the wisdom factors to do it introspectively. And if people take things out of that, that's great. But there could be people in the sangha or out in life that don't respect you, and you can't control that. And so, to your point about those wishes can be almost desires, and they can be hurtful. They can create some dukkha, because desires is part of that dependent origination, that part of dukkha. So I don't mean to
interrupt you, Tim. Did you hear my introduction? Did you hear my introduction to this talk?
Yeah, I did, of course. I can't recall it word for word, but I did. But I just wanted to just verify where I'm going with this. And so, with that being said, one thing I really did take out of this sutta is, you know, when the Buddha talks about to develop tranquility, and tranquility and control, in my mind, are related, because the thing that you often say, John, that the Buddha talks about is wanting things to be different from what they are, correct?
Yep.
But if you think about it, those are only the things we can't control. But the things that we can control, we can make different, because we can control them. We can control our speech, our actions.
Yep. So
we can't, if I want my action to be different, I can make my action different. I can't make other actions. So that statement really should have a preface of saying that wanting things to be different than what they are, the control factor should be, I think, is important. And
I
in
gotta-
other words,
let-
people
let-
sometimes
let
say,
me,
well,
let me,
you know, I got a cut on my arm and it hurts.
let me
Oh,
just-
well, I'll just,
I need
that's
to
the way it is.
interject here because you're bringing up a lot of different issues that are going to get lost. So you brought up the idea of control. The Buddha mentions that in the sutta. Control, according to the Dhamma, according to the Buddha's teaching, is established through jhana meditation.
Yes.
And it's through that well-concentrated mind that we're able to make skillful decisions as a human being about the direction of our life. So we can get caught up in the semantics, but there's so many words that are available to human beings to describe certain conditions. And so just as a way of communicating, the Buddha taught this. There is skillful desire and there's unskillful desire. And unskillful desire is anything that is rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And skillful desire is any desire that is inspired by the Eightfold Path. And so while we can look for dichotomy within the Dhamma, when we look at the foundation of what the Buddha actually taught, we see that there's none there. And so we practice the Dhamma. This sutta, you also mentioned that it's lacking something, or it's not a complete teaching. You could say that the Paticca Sutta is not a complete teaching. It doesn't include the Four Noble Truths. You could say the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is not a complete teaching because it doesn't include dependent origination in it. The Buddha would have had to start talking at 45 and never stop talking his entire life to say that talk includes an entire Dhamma teaching. That's why we continue with classes every week. It'd be wonderful. Well, it wouldn't be wonderful because I would miss doing it. There's more to the Dhamma than just any one sutta, but this sutta speaks to a very specific topic that you bring up, and you show the confusion in it, but it's a teaching on skillful desire. That's the whole point of it. So I hope that helps, and please continue. I know I interrupted you, but I want
it helps. It helps, and I agree with everything. Obviously, I mean, this is not it's hard to put into one paragraph a complete Dhamma study. But
yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, from what I got out of this was the underlying issue of control, on how it can negatively affect us as individuals of wanting those things that we cannot control to be different.
Okay, you're making a very important point. You've heard me say often that when I finally discovered the Eightfold Path and integrated it into my life, the great liberation and freedom that I directly experienced was just that I no longer have to be concerned about those things that are rooted in ignorance. And all that I need to do is to keep my control, to control my mind, and keep my thoughts, words, and deeds framed by right view.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing else that I need to be concerned about in the world. In other words, I need to concern myself with if I walk into a pharmacy, I got to be wearing a mask. That's not what I'm talking about. As far as understanding myself in the world I live in, if my thoughts, words, and deeds are framed by the Eightfold Path, I'm good to go. I don't need to concern myself with my own actions or the actions of anyone else in the world. And of course, the mind's going to go, well, remember the first time I've said something like that at a retreat. You know, a hand goes up. Well, what do we do when a train's coming at you? Like, you have to take some action. And the implication was that if I did something, isn't that rooted in desire? No, it's rooted in common sense. So my answer was, when a train's coming at you, take 2 steps to the right. The same thing with any other difficulty in life. But I don't have to take 2 steps to the right because I need to preserve myself, this fabricated self. I take 2 steps to the right because I'm an awakened human being and it's sensible to do so. The action is exactly the same, and both actions save my physical life, but the motivation is completely different. And so my 2 steps to the right are taken with a calm and peaceful mind, even though I'm doing it quickly. Does that help, Tim?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Tim, thank you for bringing it up. It really is a key theme. And it comes up often in the Dhamma because there's a seeming paradox. For everyone, there's an article on the website called Paradox in the Dhamma. If this is something that you've been thinking about, read the article because it's just brilliant and it'll explain everything to you. Thank you, Tim. Alex, this is your first time joining us, I believe. Would you like to say hello?
Yes. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good.
Yes, welcome to our sangha.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi guys. I was introduced by Tom, who I think has joined you before.
Oh yeah, yeah. Are
Yeah.
you where are you joining us from?
So I'm in London,
Yeah, good, good.
where he is now. I met Tom on a Buddhist retreat at Christmas, actually. So yeah, he told me about you and what you're doing. So I
And you
listened.
still joined us even after that, huh?
Well, he does speak very highly of you, and I guess I trust him. So, yeah, no, I did prepare myself and listen to your talk from, I think it was last week. Yeah, it's very interesting. I just like the fact that it's, from what Tom was telling me, you teach direct from the Buddha as you can, from his words. And I'm very new to Buddhism, really, because the retreat I went on at Christmas was the first Buddhist retreat I went on, and first time I was kind of exposed to the teachings.
What was it in London?
It was, it was in the centre's in London, but we went on retreat in Herefordshire, which is further up north.
Yeah. Was that Amaravati?
No, it's Triratna. The movement's called Triratna.
Gotcha. Well.
So yeah, no, I haven't got a lot to say really. Just thank you for letting me join. The main thing for me is it's already, the Triratna teachings have already thrown up some things for me that I'm still thinking about. And I think for me, if I can get as close to the Buddha's actual teachings as I can, then that's a good place to start. And yeah, it was really interesting. What stood out for me was just simple little things like the length of time of meditation is not important. To just accept that often and consistent is the right thing to do.
Yeah,
One question I had is about the right method. I don't know what method of meditation you do, but what would you say is the right method?
Because of what I teach, I only teach what the Buddha actually taught, or that I can reasonably determine. So I teach jhana meditation.
Jhana.
And jhana means concentration or non-distracted state. So the Buddha taught, as we talked in this class, he taught meditation for that sole purpose, to deepen concentration, so that a mind that is well concentrated can hold in mind, concentration, isn't it, that all 8 factors of the Eightfold Path as our life experiences and as our framework for awakening. And as we talked about here, it takes a well-concentrated mind to know when I'm acting on a fabrication and to know when I'm acting based on understanding of Four Noble Truths. That might seem pretty vague to you right now, but that's the point of the Buddha's Dhamma. And as you continue to develop this, and I hope you do, you'll see that ever more clearly. Have you been to my website? Yeah, I must have been, becomingbuddha.com.
Yeah.
Have you read the the introduction on that?
Yes.
Okay, so that gets you pointed in the right direction. If you have any other things that you'd like to talk about, send me an email and we can set up a phone call or a video chat. But I would say do that. Go, follow that, and on the home page, even if you just read from top to bottom what's written there, in that order, you'll get a very thorough understanding of what the Buddha actually taught, and a fairly simple practice to integrate into your daily life.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for letting me join.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you for joining us and for being part of our sangha. Josh, good morning.
Morning, John. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, Alex. Kind of to repeat what Alex said, my method of jhana is changes from day to day. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm going, and all of a sudden I realize I haven't done jhana. And sometimes even when I'm walking, I try to just kind of start concentrating on my breathing, and I may do that several times during the day. And I had an interesting experience yesterday, actually. Friday morning is our the Old Farts golf tournament where I live. And Western Colorado is a bastion of a political leaning that is somewhat unique and different than mine generally. And so somebody was talking about the current political events, which was a very mean and hateful way that I thought. And I decided, well, I'm just not going to sit here and listen to it. So I offered a different opinion, and I kind of started doing jhana in my mind, breathing at that time as well.
That's great.
And I remained very calm. My blood pressure didn't go up. I kind of stated my view, and I told them that I felt that they were very sincere in what they said, and I respected what they said, but I simply I simply disagreed with what they were saying. And they kind of came back with even more anger and more force. And I smiled and I said, well, I respect what you have to say, but I just simply disagree. And at no time did I feel stressed or angry or it was a very kind of different kind of experience. And I don't know if I'm practicing it right or not, but I do know it's a different experience that I'm having in a social interaction. So I really like this sutta. It was very invitational, I thought, and not telling me what to do, but inviting me to, if I want to get to where I want to get to follow these precepts. So that's what I got to say this morning, John. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Josh. You're so right about that. That you know that's a good example of Ehipasiko. You're recognizing immediately the benefits of Dhamma practice, you know, at the point of contact. Ram and I, we disagree all the time, and I never get upset. How can you get upset when somebody's always wrong? It doesn't. Just... Thank you, Josh. Good morning, Ram.
Good morning. Only wrong happens. Yeah, it's a simple sutta. If you wish to reap the benefits
You gotta do it.
of the Dhamma, you practice the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's it. I did very much like what Ed said there about taking what is not freely offered and relating that to taking someone's attention. And you know, forcing your opinions and your grand insights on others.
Yep.
That's a fine line that I had to learn to walk. It's easier when you're surrounded by people that have a lot of strong opinions, so you can see it working in other people. But it forces you to rethink that urge in yourself to want to convince others. And I've had it in my spiritual practice too before, and I've got more and more reticent to tell people about my previous practice because I felt I didn't really have the right to do that. But it wasn't skillful to do that. And I'm realizing now that
You mean to describe the difference?
To put my own opinions forward, especially when it comes to spiritual practice. Now that I have Dharma to have like a complete framework, that is easier to do, but I still now realize that it's no use doing that if the other person person is not really asking for.
And it's a very subtle aspect of right speech, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yep.
And it's teach me to shut my mouth from time to time.
Me too. Thank you. Yeah, there's no evangelism in the Dhamma. If you're evangelizing, you're not practicing the Dhamma. Good morning. Is that you? How are you?
Good. I'm good.
I can't tell. Do you have a beard?
No.
Oh, it's just a shadow. That's why I didn't recognize you.
I'm good this morning.
Good to see you. Hello, Kevin.
It is a really simple sutta, and I think it's a complete sutta, and I think it's, it's complete for us because of all the teaching we've had, and it complements everything we've learned, and it really, it wraps it up. So it's really, it includes the three jewels, it's Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha, and it teaches the importance of the Sangha as well. And I think, and it calls to mind also the teaching about the acrobat and his assistant. And at the conclusion of that is, in protecting ourselves, we protect others, and in protecting others, we protect ourselves.
Yep.
And it's, to me, it's just, it's complete. It's just, we've got all the aspects of it out there.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. What that last line is so important today, isn't it? Our consideration should be protecting ourselves and protecting others. And then we'll all be okay. Not likely going to happen. Good morning, Brett. Thank you, Kevin.
Good to be here. Thanks for your teaching.
I'm glad you're here. I did get everyone right. So the this idea of skillful desire is to be recognized and cultivated, and the dichotomy through the admonition that Tim brought up is so important, to recognize the difference. But that is another basic Dhamma teaching, isn't it? The difference between the reality of Four Noble Truths and the way that I was thinking about myself in relation to the world, because that was my issue, and it's every human being's issue. What do I think about myself, and what do I, in relation to worldly events and to the people and events of human life? And if I take any aspect of that, when you understand the subtle levels of this, Ed talked about this too, that to not take things personally allows us to not try to manipulate other people and try to manipulate the world. Because we're free of that. We have disentangled ourselves from the world, so there's no internal motivation. There's no grasping after maintaining a fabricated self. So we don't feel threatened by other people's views and opinions and actions. It simply doesn't affect us. And that's the power that comes from integrating the Eightfold Path. And I would say, just as a way of recognizing, developing Dhamma practice, when you have that feeling of, and it's not an arrogant feeling that you can't do any wrong, but that you can't do any harm to yourself or others because you know the way you think. You're in control of your thinking now. No human being, unless you're truly psychotic, and true psychosis is pretty rare in the world, no human being wants to do anything that harms any other human being. But we do it all the time, don't we? And we do it because we're ignorant of the way things truly are. We do it because of things like Messiah complex and extreme egos, and not even extreme egos. Extreme views maintaining a fabricated self creates all the suffering that we have in the world. So again, you heard me say over and over again, if we truly care about ourselves and all other human beings, we'll take to the Dhamma like our hair's on fire and awaken. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Great questions. We mentioned insight, and the questions and the comments from all of you to show that developing that true and skillful insight. We're finished. Yes.
John,
Ken,
can I just say one thing, please?
please. You can say
I
more
just
than
wanted to comment on what Josh was saying. Josh, that was a truly inspiring thing you did, because that ties into that idea of, through jhana meditation, the ability to develop the control, not to react. And you were able to keep that calm and peaceful mind. That's truly inspiring. And I'm going to remember that event you had throughout the day. And when things happen towards me, I can take the Dhamma, use jhana, to keep that calm and peaceful mind and remain in control. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And again, thank you, Josh. It's just such a perfect example. What you just said, Tim, is just a perfect example of this sutta and the importance of the sangha. You know, what you all said inspired each of us. I think that's a true statement. You know, even the ones that even Brett and David, it's an important point. I'm not being facetious here. Who passed? Their presence in this sangha is an act of holding this Dhamma space for all of us. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's just as much of an active participation as anything else. And this is Dhamma practice, having this well-focused sangha that interacts. Again, it's not just listening to a guy giving a lecture, or it's not just, you know, some kind of crazy ritual or something like that, hoping to get some gifts bestowed on us. Buddha taught how we get gifts, you know, in the Dhamma. Practice it. We'll finish with metta, as we always do. And these are the Buddha's words on metta. I mentioned Amaravati. It's a very famous center in London. They're Theravadan, so they're not strictly just what the Buddha taught. But I always fail to mention, this is their translation of metta. And I think it's the best one I've ever come across. So this is from Amaravati Monastery. Buddha's words on metta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, excuse me, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Peace. See you all.
Thank you, guys.
See you soon. Josh, let me know if we need to have a talk about that transaction.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye. Bye,
See ya.
everybody.